Gonna start recording now. So, today's going to be a bit of a different lecture than usual because we're not going to be doing too much coding necessarily. But what we will do is that we will be briefly talking about GitHub. I've told your TAs to basically focus on that and the final project for this one. Next lab should be the focus on Pig. We'll go over Pig ourselves on Tuesday because next week is proposal day when I want you to have a proposal. So during lab, I want you to kind of think about a proposal, kind of final project. But you're like, I don't even know where to begin. That's what this lecture's for. So we're gonna go. So in basically like 2 minutes, I wrote down basically basically the general categories everything falls under for final projects. These are not necessarily the be-all end-all. If your idea doesn't fit underneath here, then it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't approve of it. It's just like these are just kind of ideas to help get you brainstorming. Okay. Now, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. One of the most common things I see for a final project is games. I love games. I am huge about games. I've always loved video games. Actually, let me back up for a second, okay? Because I forgot my normal spiel, which is that I forgot to tell you guys, congratulations, you've learned how to program at this point. There's still quite a bit to learn, but you've got the foundational knowledge at this point. You know how to write functions, you know how to write if statements, you know how to write for loops, while loops. You know how to basically take a problem and you're starting to get the idea of how to break it down. You've got that base, you've laid the foundations for which you can actually, start to do programming. And you can solve non-trivial tasks. Take a look at the hurricane tracker. That one was, that seems like, you may have got the impression, oh, well, that was hard looking and then it was easier than it seemed, but actually there was a lot going on there. That's why I said it was the culmination of what we were doing. If you found like, oh, that looked intimidating and I had an easy time on it, it's because you've been working hard. You've been working hard on this one. So now the entire point of the final project is to throw you into the deep end of the pool and show you that actually, yes, indeed, you can swim. That is the entire point of this. Your final project can be in any programming language whatsoever. Any programming language you desire. In fact, Python is not normally the first thing I suggest. But I will talk about things that do involve Python. But you're allowed to do whatever programming language you want for these. For some things that will make it easier, some things will make it harder. So let's talk about it. So first off, games. One thing that I put on top because it's on the top of my mind right now is mods. If you enjoy a game like Skyrim, that's an old one I know, or Stardew Valley, or RimWorld, or Stellaris, or any game with a vibrant and active modding community, then looking at how to make a video game mod might be for you. A video game mod is basically something where basically a non-developer of the game creates their own content for a video game. A lot of places and this is common for a lot of PC games, that there's a modding community. Adding in, so it can range from things adding into new items to the utterly ridiculous, like replacing all the dragons with Thomas the Tank Engine in Skyrim. These things are pretty cool, especially since there's a lot of things you can do with models these days. There's a whole lot about that. So modding, if you're really passionate about a game and you've always wanted to make your own mark in the community in a way that you might not be able to make for a game, that's a way to do it. Doesn't have to be anything impressive. It can be as big or as small as you want. I recommend something smaller right now for if you're just trying out, but hey, you should try. I wrote down Game Boy Studio because, believe it or not, the Game Boy community has an active community going on, still making Game Boy ROMs, and there's still people making ROMs for that would be that if it was put into a cartridge would run on the old Nintendo Entertainment System or Game Boy system. So you can write a game to be played on an emulator. This is actually something I've done, and I had to do as homework back when I was an undergrad for the Game Boy Advanced. But you'll have a much easier time of it because there's tools like GB Studio that allow you to do things that allow you to do these jobs a lot easier. Than easy to use. You don't need any programming knowledge, but always. So a lot of these engines you'll see for making games, they'll say there's no programming knowledge required, and that is true, 100% true. But being able to open up the black box that they've got surrounding all the programming and being able to tweak it can make your job a lot easier. And then you can just run it in an emulator. So if you're a fan of retro games, this is the way to go with that. Okay. If you want to make a game, but you really need something structured, you really need a tutorial that you can follow from beginning to end, okay, then look no further than Canvas, actually, specifically my Canvas, okay. Under these tracks, come on, you can do it, Canvas. Okay. Modules. Under these tracks, I have games. Click on games, and you can find all the videos on this for this page that go over from scratch, how to basically make Pong. Come on. It should still be on this page. Oh yeah, there they are. Basically, how to make a game in the Lua programming language using a framework called Love. And if Pong isn't that exciting, you can continue on and basically do Mario. And this is just from and this is Love. Notice that it's not really too different from Python. Not too different. Okay, it's a bit hard to see, I know, from the glare, but you've got a lot of the same functionality. Their else if statements are a bit different. If, else if, instead of elif, else if, and then they have an end whenever they finish a code block to let you know that the code block is done, right? That's the way Lua does things. It says, here's the beginning of it, and then here's the end of it. Their function definition's a bit different, but the format is very similar, right? You still have assignment statements, and you still have the same kind of rules of the way programming languages work from one language to the other. So going from your first language to a second language isn't that bad at all. Okay. So following this tutorial or finding a tutorial online in the engine that you want to do is a good idea. Speaking of engines, you can use like a professional, this is what's used to actually make video games in the industry right now, engine. And if you want the excuse to learn it, this is your excuse to learn it for credit for an A. And by learn it, I mean get started learning it, because of course it's a big thing, and I don't expect you to have a game, but maybe you might have a prototype with it, with running down a hallway and getting jump scared. That's what one student did. They got an A. Not a low A either. I mean an A, like a pretty high A on that one. Having something that is pretty good, having something that's very, that way basically you have prototypes, you can interact with. I don't care how bad the sprites are. As long as it's functional and you're showing me that you've learned something and you made it your own, that's good. That's the other thing if you're following a tutorial. In some way, shape, or form, you need to make it your own. If you make if you make a carbon copy of what you're playing with, that's you know, and don't modify the sprites at all. Don't change the gameplay at all. Don't change the rules at all. That's kind of, you know, teetering on plagiarism there. So if when in doubt, talk to me. I'll help you make sure and say this is what you need to do if you're following a tutorial. In general, I'm pretty forgiving about it if you're upfront with me about it, because I want you to learn, because following tutorials is honestly the best way to do things. I just want you to make sure that you can turn it into your own thing. And when in doubt, make sure to cite that tutorial and just say, hey, I followed the tutorial here. This is how I did it. Cool. Unreal and Unity are the big ones that are used in the gaming community. They have licensing things, although at the level you're using it, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be free for you, and you don't have to worry about it unless you actually made a hit game and started making money with it. So don't worry about that. Godot is I believe, free open source engine. I know it's free. I believe it's open source. But that's also another good engine for making video games. Very good. If you want to make a game, but you feel that maybe veering into another programming language or to an engine might be a bit much, Pygame is for you. Now, for Pygame, first off, you'll need to make sure that you can install Pygame. If you're doing something with Pygame like this, then you'll want to open the first thing you need to do is open up your terminal, okay? Be it in on a Mac or Windows, just whatever your terminal is, and type in Python or Python 3. One of the two should work. Okay? If neither of those work, Python or Python 3 doesn't work, reinstall Python, and on Windows you need to reinstall Python and check a box that says add to path. Why is this? Because in order to install Python, in order to play with Pygame, you need something called pip, which is the Python installer program. I don't know what it's the abbreviation for, but it's pip. And what you do is you just simply say pip install, and then if you need something like Pygame, it installs Pygame for you so that it can be added. Says in my case, I already have Pygame. Pygame is not a library that comes default. It's something that was made by the community or by a developer, and thus now is part of the community. So there you go. But what it is, it allows you to make games in Python. So if you remember, I have something called Automate the Boring. I have a book linked in the syllabus called Automate the Boring Stuff. I'm a big fan of this. Down here on the bottom, making games in Python and Pygame. He has a bunch of different example games, such as how to make a snake game, how to make a Tetris game, and he has the full source code. So he has the full source code on top of the game, and then he talks about, here is the code by code, and here's what it does. It's a very cool tutorial. It's about as good as it can get without him actually sitting down and programming it in front of you. And this is all about how you can make a game. Okay? So one of the versions that I've seen from a student for Tetris to make it their own is that you have a single block in the center, okay? And the blocks can fall, and the Tetris blocks fall from the top to the bottom, from left and right. You know, they fall from all four directions, and you got to catch them. You lose if it goes out of bounds, and you want to catch as many blocks as possible because when you catch it, it sticks, just like in Tetris. And you want to catch as many as possible before it goes out of bounds. And when you get out of bounds, the game ends. It's a pretty cool, variation on that. You know, there's a lot of different variations on Tetris over the years. You know, you can make it again. Don't be afraid to make it your own. Don't be afraid to try. Okay? But Pygame is great. If you need help installing Pygame, by the way, reach out to me sooner rather than later. If I need to, I'll make a video about that. But it's a great way to make video games. Pygame has its own website where you can find how to get started with it. Right? It says the best way is to use pip. Note this comes, yep. And then it has tutorials on how to build games. Okay. So it's got a lot of tutorials on how to do stuff in Pygame. And then finally, if you really want to do something with a bit more that you get to do more art with or something like that, then look no further than RenP. RenP is a visual novel engine. It's a free engine. It's based in Python. Bad in theater, that's a pretty famous one. As I mentioned, Doki Doki Literature Club. It looks like it's a cute game, a really cute dating anime game thingy. It's not. It's free. It's wonderful. Do not play it if you're easily disturbed. It is fantastic. Those of you who know. Just Monica. Okay, so anyway, the RenP is great though. This allows you to basically make your own kind of choose your own adventure stories. And don't think just because it's like a choose your own adventure story and it's more narrative driven that basically that means that you're not in contention for the final project. A lot of people get best final project when they do with something made in RenP because RenP allows you to do more than just tell a story. You can have mini games. You can have games inside games, right? You can not only I've given various ways people have gotten best project with using RenP is making a game inside the game, okay? Like making somebody had drag and drop puzzles as part of the game. Another person did everything for the game. So not only did they do, and these games were short, I should mention, very short games, because as you're kind of just doing proofs of concepts here. But when I said this person did everything, she drew all the sprites, drew all the background art, and did all the music too. Not that much music, but because there's so much of it, only so much. But the point being is that that amount of effort, it shines through. So anybody who puts the effort so putting the effort into do your own sprites and that kind of stuff is pretty good. Sprites, by the way, are basically that's just a catch-all term for the characters and for the character images and stuff like that in various games. So if I, for instance, on a more normal context, Mario sprites, right? Here's what's called a sprite sheet, which is basically just kind of different. These were made by various people for their own fan games, but here's various Mario sprites. Okay. In general, for the kind of media that you want to use over here, go for things under the Creative Commons license. The Creative Commons license is basically allows you to use stuff for free with as long as you credit what you're using. That's generally the way it works. So the Creative Commons stuff is the best. So searching for stuff under, if you need a resource like music or images or graphics, look for it under the Creative Commons license. Not only are you not and that's freely available for you to use, and all you have to do is just simply list list it in your credits or whatever. Okay, so yes, RenP is a great way to kind of. So if you're feeling like your programming is you're not super confident right now with the programming, but you want to still make something. RenP is a great. That's kind of my default option, my default suggestion for people. Make a visual novel, tell me a story of some kind. Okay. And again, the sprites are available everywhere. You can get them. It's a great way to do things. So another big catch-all category of stuff is web pages, and that does include web apps. Meaning, so there's two types of web pages that you can basically create: static web pages and responsive web pages. Both will get you an A, but the responsive web pages are definitely the ones that would get the higher end of A's. A static web page might be something like a site for your portfolio or your resume or something. If it's actually if there's things in there just submit here and it will send me an email, you can leave me a message and send me an email, that gets you more, that will get you a lot more credit than something else. But you can just simply make a web page that, is a good portfolio for you, or a resume or something, right? This is a good skill to learn HTML and that kind of stuff. Once again, cs50.harvard.edu. I have a link to this web over here. There's 2 series of videos. The first goes over the basics of how you write web pages from scratch. Don't be alarmed by the fact that it's going to look very minimalistic. Those kind of things are very good for helping you learn how to just design web pages. And the second one teaches you how to do much more responsive web pages. Things that use Flask, which is Python. It's a Python web page server. So it's and one of their suggested kind of, you can totally follow the tutorials. They call it finance. I call it stonks because you make a fake stock trading website essentially. But web pages are a great way to do it. I've had a number of people make various web pages or storefronts or something. When I was at a hackathon, I was judging a hackathon when I was back in graduate school, and one of the best projects that we got was a very, very simple web page. It was I'm hungry she called it I'm hungry, and what it had various Nicktoons, tunes from Nickelodeon playing in the background, and there was just a there was just a button in the center that basically said, give me that. And you would basically, when you hit that, it would, all the images, all the GIFs that were on that were just cycling through were of various cartoon characters eating something. So when you saw them eating something you liked, you hit the button, and then it looked up what your location was, from your IP address, okay? And then looked for where to get that kind of food near you and displayed it on Google Maps. Very simple kind of concept, right? It's just hit a button, get the location, hook into Google Maps, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, Google wants you to use their services, though they make it easy for you. And it's just it was so clean. She got and this was her first time going to a hackathon, and she got a best newcomer prize for that. It was very good. It was just such a cleanly executed idea, executed within I think it was 48 or 72 hours. It was very good. So yeah, that was really so the web pages can be very they can be very simple. They can do something complicated underneath. They can be fun. Don't be afraid. Again, don't be afraid. I'll help reel you in if it's something that I'm worried about not being viable. Okay, let's keep going. I gotta keep going on this. Hardware-based stuff. So let's see. Let me check my volume here. Is that coming from the speakers? No, that is not. That is coming from, okay. Sorry, I'm about to play a video, so I didn't want it to be too loud, so I just wanted to make sure. So I've had people make stuff, with Lego robot kind of stuff. I've seen, there's, different robots that try to follow, maze solving robots that people do. But right now, you can get things like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis very cheaply. One of my favorite example projects I like to show students here is a Raspberry Pi. A Raspberry Pi, by the way, is a tiny little computer. It's about credit card sized. And you can interact with it on the hardware level with Python. It's pretty cool. And they're fairly cheap, so to speak. They targeted $35 for the initial one. That's about how big it is. And it's got ports on it that the CPU doesn't even need a heat sink. It's great. And there's all sorts of projects you can do with these things. My favorite is the Raspberry Pi laser tripwire. Yeah, I go to this every semester because it's just because what it is just basically it is a very, very basic kind of idea here. So
the laser pointer gaffer taped to the skirting board, and if we look over here, I've got my Raspberry Pi sitting in its box with the straw sticking out there and the laser pointer shining into that. If you want to make sure that the laser's there, what we can do is we can turn the lights off and then we can blow a little bit of flour.
So using flour to show that, and giving some other suggestions on
the laser. There we go. We can turn the lights back on now, and then we can get some unsuspecting person to walk through the laser and set it off. And then when they walk back out again, and we can see whether it works with dogs. Loki, come. Yes.
So there you go. It's very, so he's got it set up when basically it can no longer detect the laser. It beeps, very kind of straightforward, and in case you're curious, it like tells you how to do this. Raspberry Pi, a breadboard, a capacitor, a light sensor, a laser pointer. Then it shows kind of how to do this. It goes over this, how it works, how to connect it, how the code works for this thing that you've made. Talking about lambda expressions is what they're doing, and then, okay, I'm stuck, what should I do? Okay, and if I'm really stuck, you can go all the way here. Then how do you make a noise with a buzzer? Right? But otherwise you could, do something like send yourself a text message or a tweet or something like that, or an email, or trigger it to take a picture, right? I once did something like that with an old netbook where I set it up to use this webcam to basically as a security camera, and it would just simply snap pictures because my cat got stuck in the wall and I needed to see if she was out. And she did come out, and I was able to see, okay, she went back in, but she's right there, and so we can just simply block off that part, and we were able to extract her because we had just moved in, and she got into a crawl space. Here, and she's a very skittish cat. So anyway, let's see. Other kind of but anyway, doing something with the hardware is something that I'd be totally going up for. If you're a senior, you're allowed to double dip your research project. In other words, or your senior project. So typically seniors in sciences or engineering, they typically have like a final project they're already working on. If it involves programming, feel free to double dip. Like all you have to do is get approval from both me and the professor being involved, right? Or if you got to do another final project again or homework, you just got to get permission from the other professor as well as me. The easiest way to do that is speak to the other professor and then confirm with an email sent to both of us. Like, if you don't get permission, that actually goes against the academic dishonesty policy in the school. This has not been an issue with anybody. I'm just like letting you know that's why we have you get permission, because technically double dipping like that is not allowed. Machine learning is all the rage. If you want to try a project with machine learning these days, be it like something to predict stocks, or you want to basically create your own local instance of a generative adversarial network for image generation. Like an older example, I can't believe this is old now. This person does not exist, right? This is what an example of a generative adversarial network. Oh, they really upped the UI on this. So this is all generated images, fake images of people. These are all fake. So there's also one for cats as well. But the point being, if you want to like set up and learn how to train how to run the training on your own computer with the data set, and then get your own outputs, yeah. That's a way you can go for that, since that's like super popular these days. Apps. So the tutorial I have for apps is outdated because unfortunately apps go through, both iOS and Android update much more frequently, and they don't have the same need to maintain reverse compatibility that like the desktop-based operating systems do. However, that being said, if you want to work on create an app for iOS or for Android, feel free to do so. In order to do it for iOS, by the way, you're going to need to work on a Mac. That's like one of the requirements from Apple. You'll need to work on it on a Mac via Xcode. And that will be done in the, I believe, Swift programming language. If, on the other hand, you decide to work in Android, then in that case, that's done in Java for the most part. Java is what you're learning for next semester, and what you're going to use that in 1068 and 2168. So it's not a bad idea to do that. And Java and Android programming can be done on any computer, and it can be something as simple as an app for note-taking or games. I believe the Android, the older Android kind of modules I have over here still work. Like one of them is that they make as a Pokédex app. So you can totally just, again, riff off this for ideas. Make a Instagram filter-like app, so an app for taking pictures and putting on filters. That's something that's fairly straightforward to do once you've got a handle on how to do those kind of things. These are all good, viable ideas. If you're in the art or music kind of space, I've already had somebody speak to me about music and creating VSTs. So you could create a plugin that runs in a digital audio workspace for that. Or if you're working, or if you like Blender for doing 3D modeling, that's integrated with Python and Blender go hand in hand. So you can write maybe a script or something. Honestly, I don't know too much about Blender enough to say that, but basically if you make something that makes your job all the much easier, or automate something in Blender, I mean the same applies for any kind of thing like Photoshop, then that's a good idea, right? So also if you want to try doing like an AI generated art project of some kind, speak to me. That's much easier these days, unfortunately, so may not be as interesting as it used to be. Music, though, is still a much more difficult space than I'd say than the visual space is. Another final popular one is bots. So Discord bots specifically, so making a bot that answers things on Discords is a very, very popular kind of thing. Whether to give stats for the character in your multiplayer online battlefield kind of game, like League of Legends or something like, or Dota, or something, or just like a chat bot that creates really dumb quotes. Before he went really off the deep end, one of the projects I fondly remember was a Kanye bot. So see if somebody put together a machine learning program on a bunch of Kanye quotes to create new Kanye quotes. It had very convincing results, let's say. But the point being is that if you want to make a bot like that, that's pretty awesome. I think that making bots is a really good way to kind of do it. The bots, once you learn how to make them, don't necessarily need to make too many lines of code. One of the ones that got final project, best final project was I think maybe 30 lines of code, because what it was also was it was that he took the hardware and the bots, and he basically implemented the big red button from Among Us, So essentially, it was a big red button. You pushed it, and it initiated sending a Discord message to everybody in his friend group on the server. So basically, it was push button, send out this message to everybody. For an emergency meeting kind of thing. So anyway, it was I thought that was brilliant because it combined two different aspects here, and that was pretty good. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of, this hopefully gives you a better idea of what you want to do. If you come to me on Thursday and you come to me and say, Professor Rosen, I have no idea what I want to do, I'm most likely going to recommend you make a game in RenP, and because that's very straightforward and allows you to be creative, and I'll know pretty much that what you make is your own thing. So So don't worry about that. There was one other bot. Somebody did make a bot to like look at to basically. Somebody there. So occasionally I will veto some stuff like a scalping bot. Somebody wanted to make a scalping bot, and I'm like, that people don't like scalpers. I think that's kind of. I just don't want to. I'm like that seems like a valuable skill, but I ain't gonna want to give credit for a scalping bot. For like it was for like detecting shoes and buying them out essentially. Yes.
Is this final project supposed to be solo or with a group?
Excellent question. So I hate mandatory group projects. So it's up to you. Your group can be one person, two people working together, or up to three. Three is the most. So you can do so you get to choose whether you're in a group or not. Okay? If you're in a group, I'll talk about submission process later. Then really only one person need to submit it, but the other people should at least submit enter in this is who submitted it. Look over here so I can get my grade just in case the person who submitted it forgot to write it down. It makes my job easier and I don't have to put in zeros temporarily at the end, which freaks people out. Everybody who does the work gets their grade in the end. It's just I don't want to give anybody a minor heart attack. But yeah, you get to decide. In general, the bigger the group, the more complex of a project I'll expect, but not necessarily super huge amounts because, more people also means more communication and more coordination, which is its own issue. And also with the group stuff, if you choose a group, once we're like a week and a half out from the deadline, you're kind of stuck there, because I can't really. At that point, it doesn't seem viable for you to go off and do your own thing. That has happened. I've had that asked to happen only once, so it's not a very common thing. So what do I need you to turn in for this? We've got the proposal, which technically has a due date of tomorrow. I can push that back, but honestly, let's go through this. So what we're going to do is that, so if you go to Canvas, you'll see that there's this proposal.md. Anybody know what an MD file is? No? MD stands for Markdown, as opposed to HTML, which is a hypertext markup language. Markdown is meant to be a simpler version of a markup language. It's meant to be very simple. Programmers are sometimes think they're really clever. So I'll download it, put it here, and you want to basically open this in. This will open in either VS Code, or for me by default it will open in VS Code. You can also open it in any text editor, but that is the kind of thing that it opens in. It opens in a basic text editor. Okay. And this is and the reason we use a markdown file is that it's the specific, it's the kind of thing that you need for, this is kind of the default thing that a lot of places like Discord uses it, GitHub uses it, and I'll talk about why we care about GitHub in a bit. So, proposal. So what do you have to fill out? Not much right now. Not much at all, actually. This is brainstorming. What ideas do you have? Brainstorming, write some down ideas. You're not committed to it. You're not committed to any idea right now. Just kind of write down what ideas you have. If you plan to collaborate with other classmates, who? Do you have any questions of your own that need to be answered? It's very markup is very Markdown is very simple. To briefly explain, this basically means this is big, super big heading, and this means slightly less big heading, right? So this will be rendered as something really large, and this will be rendered as something that's slightly less than large. So think of it as title, as section, subsection, and then that gets rendered very easily. It's also very good for doing lists. It's its own kind of thing. So we fill this out and we do it, and We go to submit it. So let me go ahead and pretend to be a student for a second. We fill it out and we submit it. And then we have an issue because I don't have anywhere to upload it. Instead, I have a URL. You will be hosting your project on either GitHub or some equivalent of it, like GitLab or something like that. Why? Because there is no dog ate my homework excuse in my class. There is none. There is no my computer died excuse, and then therefore I lost all the files to my final project. There is no it was on a flash drive and I lost it. It's on GitHub. That's where it stays. GitHub. If I can't access your code, then all the programmers all over the earth are having a giant freak out, and it's not your fault, right? So, GitHub. Now, first let's explain GitHub and what it is. It is basically a website that uses Git. Git was created by this man, Linus Torvalds. Yes, that Linus Torvalds. If you don't know who he is, this guy made Linux. If you don't know what Linux is, that's okay. That's the point of Linux. You don't need to know that Linux runs on 70% of all servers on the web, as well as basically all the Android phones that you use. That is that's Linux. It is the backbone for pretty much everything. So anyway, he's also known to be a rather acerbic individual who definitely needs anger management. Some of his emails about contributions to the Linux kernel are rather, let's just say it would be a very hostile workplace. That being said, he seems to be a pretty nice guy, just not when it comes to programming. Anyway, Linux is named after him because he likes naming things after himself. He also named Git after himself, which is funny if you know what that means. It's an insult. Across the pond, that's an insult to call somebody Git. Anyway, so what it is that it is a source version control service. Basically, think of it as a super save. You know how you write your documents and you're like first draft, second draft, final version, definitely final version 2, definitely the final version I'm going to submit, number 23, like that. That's very annoying and it ends up cluttering your files. And plus, it's hard to figure out what's changed between files. Git helps you with that, as well as other things. It's fairly straightforward, and this is how you use it. Let's see. What is this? Not git commit, but this is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects. That's the other thing. It allows people to work on the same file. Multiple people work on their own copies of the same file and kind of merge the changes that everybody does. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model. Cool, how do we use it? No idea, just memorize these shells command and type them to sync up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project and download a fresh copy. Don't worry about it, in other words. The good news is that using Git these days doesn't really require too much, thanks to websites like GitHub. When I was in graduate school, GitHub got big enough and important enough that Microsoft decided to eat them up. And honestly, Microsoft has been doing a pretty good job with GitHub. So very happy about that, actually. They've been doing a great job with VS Code, too. So good job, Microsoft, with that kind of open source stuff. So what is GitHub? GitHub is a website like this. It is a website for hosting various projects. Here I host like a bunch of code that I've written for class on here in different things. Here I have various, here's where I have some source code for a textbook I'm working on. And but what it is basically it tracks changes between different versions of what you do. If you use it, if you actually use this I would hope you would use it, I could actually be able to see week by week or day by day or change by change what you were doing in your project. A lot of people just simply upload their final thing to GitHub, which is not necessarily recommended due to the aforementioned dog eating homework problem. But let's go ahead and teach by example. I'm going to do it the hard way first. Actually, no. Time-wise, we don't really have time to teach it the hard way. So we'll go very straightforward. Create a new repository. So what you want to do is create an account. It's going to be free for you. It's basically free for everything. You want to make a new repository. If you can't figure out a repository is basically your project. Basically, like you could call it something like final project if it's your final project, or you could call it. You'll want to do all the final project stuff here. Or if you've got a definite name of what you're going to do it, you can put it over there. Or if you have no idea what you want to call it, just like take their suggestion that they have here. I'm going to take their suggestion of using solid rotary phone for the final project. Okay? Description. Example Git repo, that's short for repository, for CIS 1051 Spring 2024. I'm going to keep it public. When you submit it, you'll want to make it public. You'll want to keep it public, definitely, because otherwise, when you send me the final project, if it's private, I won't be able to see it, and then I have to temporarily give people zeros until they publish it. The reason, and that's okay because it will have timestamps, so you can't just accidentally keep it private and then submit stuff. And I'm like, no, it keeps this thing keeps track of when things were uploaded, so I'll know. I'll click this, add a README file. This is nice. A README file is just kind of a description. You can change that, and then that's all we need here. Create repository. Okay. So I'm just going to show you like the easiest kind of workflow we can do here. What you want to do at that point is that there's a GitHub desktop app. This is the easiest way to do it. There's a lot of different commands you can use, like git commit, git push, git pull, git merge, and all that stuff. Honestly, let's make it easy for yourself. Download GitHub desktop or something like that. Okay? I already have it on my computer. I should already have it on my computer, and I do. And if you already have it on your computer, it will automatically prompt me to do that. If, however, you're just opening GitHub Desktop and you want to open up one of your repos, so what it is that basically your main repo lives on GitHub, and everybody in your project can have their own copy of it running locally on their computer. And the way you do that is you clone it. Okay? Okay, and then I just simply go to github.com. It says, okay, once you've logged into your account, it will go through and do this one. It was something about rotary phone, right? Solid rotary phone. There we go. So I'll choose the one that I just made, hit clone, and it opens up in my computer. And it's got a couple different ways of doing this. First off, notice these buttons over here. View on GitHub, number one, which opens the repository on Git. It opens up the page we were just at. Open your View in Explorer, or in Finder if you're on a Mac, and this will open it up right here. This will be useful in about 10 seconds. And then the other thing, for those of you who use VS Code, open it in Visual Studio Code, another Microsoft product that they want you to use. It's honestly very good. And you'll notice, opening this up over here, okay, if you open this up over here in VS Code, or something that's not idle, that has a bit more advanced features, that down here, it starts having things. It's going to be hard to read, but if you're using VS Code and follow this, you'll notice that there's things over here that says, hey, this isn't a Git folder. Did you know that VS Code automatically integrates with Git? That's pretty awesome. And if it does, and that's fine if you don't. So let's go ahead and show you what I want to do. If I want to add a file over here into this folder, let's go ahead and show and explore again. And what I'm going to do, okay, what I'm going to do save, is I'm going to pretend I'm doing a proposal. Okay, so I've made an account, I've created a GitHub repo, I've downloaded this program. Now what I do, okay, is that I can either create a new file here, or I've downloaded the proposal. I'm just going to drag that proposal file into the folder, the GitHub folder over here. How did I open the folder? Again, what I did was there. Oh, notice that it changed over here. It changed. Once I dragged this file into this folder, it detected, hey, you've got a changed file. Hold on a second. Yes, I can. Okay, Control plus. Nice, good, much easier to read. It changed in here. It detected that I've got that I put in the proposal file. Okay, and all I do is and then just simply I have to do a couple steps to get it up there. Very easy steps, mind you. First is added proposal. This is a comment to let people know, hey, what was the change I just made? And you'll start to see why we care about this in just a second. I make a commit. A commit is basically that kind of a hard save. It's kind of it's like basically saving the progress of your project at this point in time. That's what it does. I've committed it. What it cares about is just keeping your things committed. Yes?
Does it save only on the local on your computer or to the main one in GitHub?
Excellent question. That, when you make a commit, it is a local change until you hit this button over here that says push origin, or you hit it over here. And the one over here means that you have one commit that you haven't uploaded yet. Okay? Push. And there it goes. And now I reload the page on GitHub itself. And voila, it's there on the internet. How's this different than using a Google Drive? Well, this button is a bit more advanced than what Google Drive has in terms of it. Initial commit, so it goes back over here and it's saying, hey, all we had was this file back here. Let's go ahead and fill out this form. Just kind of, this will become more apparent as we make changes. Okay, so I suppose I make changes over here on our file. Proposal, what ideas do I have? Let's see, a video game mod for RimWorld or Stardew Valley. Both games that have very vibrant modding communities. Very, very active modding communities. A visual novel in Ren P. A stock price prediction program using Monte Carlo. If you plan on collaborating with one or two other than names, I plan on collaborating with Awesome Alice and Best Bob. Okay, so there we go. Do I have any questions? Nope. Basically what I need for this, I hit save, and then it will, yes?
On the timeline of VS Code, you can see like there were 10 changes. Was all 10 changes when you save it to GitHub, can you see?
That's a single commit, yes, you can see. And we're about to see what happens. Okay, so I've made this, I'm done with the homework. This diff contains different line endings from LF to CRLF. That's just saying that basically the file was made on a Mac versus a Windows. They have different interpretations of line endings. You do not worry about that. Okay, so I've done with proposal. Hit commit, and then I will push it. Okay. All right, so now over here, let's go ahead and we'll look on this over here. And we have our proposal over here, and look at this. It has all the changes we made, and look, and this is what happens with Markdown, by the way. It has the proposal, with the big hash, and then the 2 hashes becomes this, and then here's all the text over here. So it's nice and easy to read. And now I'm going to simulate. Suppose I'm working with a partner, okay, and I've uploaded this file, and he wants to make some changes to it, okay, and he has his own ideas. So I'm going to simulate this by editing the file directly over here, okay, rather than that's the easiest way. You can edit files directly in GitHub, by the way. I'm going to simulate it by editing it directly over here, and say maybe also also saying that cool laser tripwire, okay, commit changes, okay, commit, and now if I come over here to GitHub, sorry, to Git, okay, I can hit this button that says fetch origin, and it will say, hey, there was a change that somebody else made, or maybe you made it, on the website. Do you want to bring those to your computer? There's sometimes where you might not want to do that yet, but in this case, yeah, totally. Pull, boom. And now, if I check this file, it now updated, actually. It automatically reloaded it for me and says that cool laser tripwire on there. So I'm going to make a change over here, a Discord bot. Put that over here, and I'm going to commit that, but I'm not going to push it yet. One more idea. So this is the only thing that if you've been thinking, this might be. So what does this mean that we can all work on things independently? Hopefully this works. Generally, it's pretty smart about this kind of stuff. Okay. So suppose you're working on it, and then your partner also makes a change, right? So I've made a commit. And then my partner is making a commit. So let's see, where did I put that stuff? So Discord bot, and then I put over here, that cool laser trisp, a Lego bot. I had an idea. Commit changes. So I've committed a change over here, and now the website I've made, somebody else also made a change. I'm going to go ahead and push. It says, oh, wait. There's something that was newer than what you did. Okay, I'll get those changes. Okay, and it says, oh, there's one down. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the files. And then it says, hey, now you have 2 local commits. Why? Because in this case, the changes were simple enough and that it was automatically able to figure out how to merge those changes. Otherwise, it will basically be able to combine the changes for you in one file and show you, okay, this is what you had, this is what change A is, this is what change B is. Which of these 3 do you want? And you can go through them like that. But here, that was super easy. It knew how to do them. And so now, push that onto the server. So basically, that's what I mean that 2 people can work on the same file at once. You can make multiple changes, and if you need to download it again to merge things, it's fine. So let's now go ahead and now I can actually show you what I mean by this timeline. So we started on this 12 minutes ago. Now notice that it says merge of branch main, so it merged things together. It says here's what the change was to the file. We can actually see the entire file. Browse files if I want to see everything over here. But I can also go over here to the 7 commits and I can go like over all the way back. Suppose like we make changes and it messed everything up. I can go to an older commit, click on it, browse files. All the older files are still there. All the older versions are still there. Make sense? So that you can see how this is a valuable tool in a big project. If you like try something and you aren't sure what you did, but now everything's all broken and you can't fix anything, just roll back to a previous commit that you're using. Yes.
Because it's public, does that mean anyone can change it?
No, it means anybody can see it.
So how do you make sure everyone that you want can collaborate?
Excellent question. Let's see. I think you have to go into the danger zone for that. You go to settings up on top. You can ignore most of these over here, and then you just and over here on the second thing down, collaborators. Give me a second to. I have two-factor authentication on because obvious reasons, right? If you got access to my GitHub account, you'd have access to all my answers. So that's kind of the reason why I keep it two-factor authenticated. Also, it's like I don't want anybody to accidentally impersonate me, and that kind of impersonation has been used to spread malware in the past. Not of me, just of programmers in general. Because GitHub is like a nice, big, really trusted platform. And so general, it's public, meaning it's visible to anybody. People can make pull requests to your So first off, anybody can clone it, okay? Anybody has read access, they can clone it, make a local copy. But they can't make changes to the main repo unless one of two things. The first thing is that they're a collaborator. You add their username, their full name, or the email account that they signed up with. That simple. Let me see. Let's see. Wait, I bet you did this one, didn't you? No. Okay. So anyway, if you can upload anybody there and give them these, and you can specify what kind of access they have to it. Okay. The other settings probably aren't really needed. You don't need multiple branches. What you can, if they're not, and for bigger projects, what happens is that a lot of people work on stuff and they make what's called a pull request. We're basically saying, I made some changes to the code. Do you want to put them into your branch? Okay. Yes?
How would you say to split up the work? Because like if you did it with the Hurricane Lab and you're both writing the same thing by accident, like if we both wrote three lines,
it really depends on the so for the Hurricane Lab, honestly, it's better to just do over-the-shoulder programming, pair programming, for that. But for this kind of thing, it might be the case of like in a video game where once the engine is working, maybe one person is working on one level and another person's working on another level, or one person's working on the level and another person's working on the sprites. Or creating new enemies and stuff like that. That makes sense? Right? Specific concrete tasks is the way to split that up. Yes?
So say I'm just trying to understand this. So like when multiple people are like when it's like in real life and people are updating this like every 5 seconds, right? Like there's a huge team, right? And there's people like maybe working on like they're adding a new touch.
Yeah.
But it's from like a version that isn't the latest, right? Like that's gonna be more realistic since the latest is like keeps getting updated. And you said like it's smart enough to kind of like merge.
Yep. So typically so in very large projects, what happens is that typically rather than making so notice that like it says merge branch main. Typically what people do is that they create a new branch off of it's a tree. You've got the main trunk. And then, like, if you're a specific team working, this is a very large project. If you're a specific team, like at Microsoft, and you're working at on one specific feature, you will make a new branch, right, and do all the changes on that branch, which is stable for you because you're going off a specific commit, right? And when you're done with that branch, then it becomes a much larger job to merge all of the features in, but you're now merging all the features in all at once into the main branch. So very little action actually happens on the main branch in industry. At least that's the theory. There are plenty of places where that does happen, where it does happen on the main branch. That's just not feasible when there's like 100 people working on it, but when there's 3 people working on a project, totally feasible.
But even for like a smaller project, like let's say like you're working on an older version, right? And like maybe there's like a group of like 5 people and someone else just like updated to something like completely different. And then you update it back to the older version, like a little bit updated, right? Like
If you've got an older version, it will try to detect and merge it. Otherwise, you'll get a conflict of some kind, and then you have to resolve the conflict before you can upload it. Okay? Yes.
In the meme it said if you get an error, don't worry, delete it, save, and then start over. So how would you go about? Would you just look in the history and save it?
You would take this. What you would do is you'd take this folder, copy it, I'd paste it onto my desktop. I'd then delete it and then download a fresh copy from, so what they're describing is delete it, download a fresh copy from Git, and then try to put your changes back in and then upload it. Make sense? Because once you make the changes like that, it's, fairly straightforward. Again, for smaller projects, one-person projects, that's totally viable and the easy way to do things. Yes?
Are you able to save a copy from Git that was in the past?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. I believe you can. Yeah, that's what the entire. That's what this entire commit system is for. We go to the commit. It's a great question, by the way. We go to, again, like one more idea over here, browse files, and this brings up to that timeline. And I can just simply get this code at this point, pretty much. Or, honestly, all this stuff is still, and honestly, I believe the changes still are here. Are they in a hidden folder? I always forget that. View, it doesn't show me over here. I think it keeps it nice and organized. I know there's ways to do it. You have different ways to go through the branch, to create a new branch, and to do that. Honestly, though, again, what this ends up being is that you can use a lot of it saves a lot of headaches because you can get your code down on any computer that you're working on very easily, right? If your computer gets crushed by your roommate or something like that, it becomes a very easy way to basically recover it in a working order that you had. This is why it's meant for this kind of stuff for both big projects and small projects. And again, all you have to do at the beginning is make a markdown file, and then later on, if you're writing a program, you might do something like make a Python file. As you're making your program, you might go and say main.py. Yes, I know what I'm doing. And then you open it and you start writing it. Import random def main print. I'm just doing boring coding over here. Not that main. There we go. Save, and then oh, come on. And I can commit it over there. Or, let's see, can I do it from here, from VS Code? No problem. It just says no problems here. GitHub. You need extensions for GitHub. That's okay. So I go over here. It says, hey, here's your file. Okay. Commit. Push. Anyway, that is your proposal. That's what I'd like you to get done by, hold on a second, for me to change the due date. I'm going to change the due date to something more realistic for lab purposes. Leave student view. Let's go ahead and get that to Monday. Gesundheit. Yeah. Okay. Send that to Monday. Okay. And then for the proposal itself, let's just go look at that. That's its own separate file. The proposal, not the preposal, right? The preposal. The proposal is the same thing, just slightly longer, not something to stress about. If you're writing paragraphs, you're doing it wrong, okay? So what will likely be the prod title? So when you come when you come on Thursday, this is the kind of thing that I want you to have. After you do the brainstorming, this is the kind of thing to do, right? This is not what's due on Monday. This is what I want you to be able to have done after you meet with me. After you meet with me on Thursday. Make sense? What will likely be the title of your project? Again, changeable. Sentence or two, summarize your project. E.g., a website that lets you pretend to buy and sell stocks, because actually buying and selling stocks is rather difficult. In a paragraph or more, detail your project. What will your software do? What features will it have? How will it be executed? Like, okay, I'm making a visual novel. What will your software do? It will tell a story about X. It will have. I'm going to use sprites and music from that sourced from Creative Commons. It will be done in Python. It will be done in RenP with hopefully a little bit of Python programming. See? If you're doing this with another final project, put that there. Who are you working with, if applicable, right? And then here's the three things, the kind of three things. So in the world of software, most everything takes longer to implement than you expect. We like to joke that basically the 90% of the work takes 90%, that basically that 10% of the work takes 90% of the amount of time. So in world of software, most everything takes longer to implement than you expect. And so it's not uncommon to accomplish less than a fixed amount of time you hope. In a sentence or a list of features, what is a good outcome for your final project? E.g., what will you hope to do no matter what? Baseline. In a sentence or two, define a better outcome. What do you think you can do? Okay, what do you think you can do? It's very hard to judge these things, right? But basically, a thing you definitely know you can do. Well, I know I know if I'm doing a visual novel, I definitely could write, I could just basically do some very basic storytelling with a sprite. You know, maybe a completely linear game, no choices. Okay? Not much of a game, but hey. Not much of a game in the sense that it has choices, but then that becomes a question of what is a game. In a sentence, what's a good outcome? What will you, so what will you accomplish? What's a better outcome? So this is basically what you're targeting. And then finally, what is the best outcome for you? What will you hope to accomplish before the final project's deadline? In other words, if the stars align and all the coding goes right and everything works on the first time, what do you hope to get done? What are your unrealistic expectations? Okay? In a paragraph, and this is in a paragraph or more, what are the next steps you need to do? What new skills will you need to acquire? Well, I need to learn how Pygame works. I need to learn how to implement sprites in there. I need to know how to play music. Or if it's a game, I need to know how to how to install Pygame. Then I need to do that. I need to download Unity. I got to figure out how that works. All different options here. I need to go out and buy the hardware. I need to learn how to connect the hardware to my computer and how to actually program on the Raspberry Pi. I need to go out and I need to, find out where that interpreter lives, the Python interpreter lives in FL Studio. Yes, for those of you who use FL Studio, there is a Python interpreter built into FL Studio. So what else kind of research will you need to do? So it's a bit longer for the proposal, but which is due next week. But it's not. I'm not like asking you to write an essay, right? This is very minimalistic stuff. The thing that requires the most work, in my opinion, is this bottom one, which says, "What am I going to do next?" And if so, and if you've got people, who are you going to do it with? I only need one copy per group. Yes?
For submitting the proposal, are we supposed to put in the URL from GitHub?
Yep. You put so over here. Oh yeah, that's a great question. So what I do, so now what I do over here, I suppose I've got my, I've done all this stuff and more, right? I've done this stuff and more, right? Here's my, so what I would do is I just simply would take this URL, copy it, and then, right, let's pretend to be a student again. Click on this. Student view. And then I would just simply paste in the URL over there. If it doesn't work, you'll temporarily get a 0 until it does work. Make sense? It's no hard zeros on this one, because that's the other thing. It's got timestamps. I know if you're pulling my leg or not. If you've submitted it and there was just simply an issue of, I forgot to copy the last couple of characters. Whatever. I'll put a 0 so I can get your attention mainly. That's the point of the zeros, to get your attention. Nope. The only way you actually get a 0 on this final project is if you cheat. Don't cheat. And by cheat, I mean like I had somebody who turned in like a 2D tank game like 3 days after the project deadline, and he had ripped it off. I think he did not think I could find it because the website was written, it was a foreign language website as opposed to one on the English internet. But source code is source code, and I can Google very unique looking source code like anybody else can. So, generally I don't go looking up like random snippets of code like that, but when students submit stuff late for the final project, you bet I do. All right, so anyway, that's it for today. This, honestly,